I decided to work him today. I gave myself a little room, either Friday or Saturday, based on weather. Tomorrow the forecast looks better, but up to yesterday it looked like it could rain. So I just didn't want to take any chances with a cell comes through tonight or something, and the track's a little too hard or too wet tomorrow. So we got out there and inspected the track in the morning. It's just in fabulous shape today. You're not going to get a better track to train on than today. So why take any chances? And he had a nice strong work today. I'm very pleased.
How do you compare how he's done here compared to Keeneland? Has it just been a steady transition from his training there to here?
Much of the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he went into Keeneland and had a good race with no works. Worked once after the race, as you all saw, and he worked fabulous. And yeah, it's been smooth. The good thing about this horse, he's takes his racetrack with him. So anywhere we've ever had him, he's always trained well. So more of the same at Churchill.
What's the plan this week for him? Do you plan, obviously Zandon has had a couple little tardy breaks. Do you school him a little more, prepare him for the Derby starting gate? What's the
It's a
game
good
plan?
question. Yeah, tentatively I'm going to take him back to the gate on Tuesday, just to stand him in there and see. I'm not exactly sure why that is. Back at the fairgrounds, he definitely hopped at the start, missed the break. Last time I thought he broke okay. I think, early on in the race, he just didn't have the early acceleration to sort of get his spot in the first turn. I think he was more or less shuffled a little bit to the back, to the early stages of the race. So, he's always been a good-tempered horse in the gate, so I'm not sure why he's sort of fall back in his races a little bit, but we'll take him back there nevertheless on Tuesday, and hopefully he's good. It'll just be one trip to the gate.
And, he's just really looked good here training.
Yeah.
Of course, like you said, he looked really good at Keeneland, but
Yeah.
is he a horse that touts you?
He is. He's a good-looking horse to begin with, and he's such an efficient mover, tremendous reach on him. Very unique horse, being almost jet black. So he's easy to stand out there, and he trains, as good as a horse can possibly train. So, I'm proud of my team and everyone that's worked with this horse to get him to this point, and especially Zandon himself. The horse he's really brought us here. So hopefully he has another smooth week of training and gets into the Derby with a fair post, and hopefully gets a good spot in the first turn.
And Chad, you've nominated so many nice horses to a lot of the supporting stakes. So
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could talk about some of the other prominent horses you'll be running Derby week.
Yeah, Jack Christopher.
Right.
He's going to breeze tomorrow, so he's going to run the Pate Mile. He comes to mind, and I have a horse named Jerry Mander. His first time running this year. She actually beat Ness last fall, and then had a little time off just to freshen her up, and she got sick on me this winter, so that's why she's off the Oaks Trail. She's going to run 8 bells. I'm excited about that, and we have some horses for the turf races, of course, and the Distaff Turf Mile. We have a couple fillies in there. An Italian who's coming off a nice graded win at Gulfstream, and a horse first time in the country, and Speak of the Devil, I'm kind of excited about. So the Old Forster is a race we've won the last 3 years. So we have 3 entries in there with Tribuven and Public Sector, his first start of the year, Tribuven's first start of the year, and a horse named Adamo, who's only run once ran at the fairgrounds, a good second, first time in the country. So I'm excited about those horses. We have Reinvestment Risk. He's going to run the Churchill Downs. He's coming off a good second in the Carter. So excited about him. And we have 3 or 4 horses we're considering entering for the Edgewood Stakes, so I'll wait till entry day to see exactly which ones we're going to run there. Look, Churchill puts on a beautiful weekend of racing here. We've always participated, whether we had a live horse for the Derby or not. All the different races, there's something for everybody in there. And fortunately, we have a very deep, diverse group of horses to work with, so you'll see plenty in the entries.
And with Jack Christopher, obviously he was a little bit farther behind to be in the Derby picture this year. But update me on how he's done for you. I know you've been patient with his training and preparations.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he missed the Breeders' Cup there, and then he had to go to the sidelines for a little bit and get off the Derby trail. But I couldn't be happier with him. Particularly his last month of training, he's really jumped forward, and is not only back to where he was, he's moved forward as a 3-year-old. So his training, to my eye, which is amazing. So I'm really looking forward to getting him started. It's not an easy spot to come back in a race like the Pate Mile Derby Day. For a horse, it's first start as a 3-year-old, but he's a Grade 1 winner. mean, I'm not really interested in running him in an allowance race against older horses, so I'm going to just go ahead and point him into that race next week. And he's done everything right training.
You've certainly run your share of horses in California, so you were familiar with Flavian Pratt. But just talk about, I mean, he he said he was moving east, and he sure made a statement quickly at Keeneland.
Yeah. He's we had a lot of success last year. Our very high percentage of wins together. And I was using him on a lot of different state courses around, and he was always willing to come or be available. So I thought it was good news that he's coming east to give us another top rider in the colony, and I feel fortunate he's going to be there, and I plan on using him quite a bit.
What about the confidence level Zandon gives you, given all the mile and eighth races that he has had? I mean,
that's a good point. Having 3 mile and eighth races, he's lightly raced, Johnny. I think you bring up a good point. It gives me a little more confidence that he's shown tremendous stamina. You wouldn't think the mile and a quarter would be an issue, and with all 3 of his mile and an eighth races, he's had some challenging trips to gain some experience, all the way back to the Remsen with a bumping sort of rough stretch duel from the 8th pole home, and then of course the fairgrounds missing the start, having a bit of a wild trip to get up to be 3rd, and then last time in the bluegrass on a muddy track, just coming from last, splitting horses and catching mud, and a big bump in the middle of the stretch there to find a hole there. So I feel like this horse, again, he might not have a lot of races, but he has good experience.
What do you make of a horse like Taba, the San Diego Derby winner? Only raced twice, small fields. You talk about getting the experience. Obviously a very talented horse. Should be for 1.7 million.
Yeah, I've learned now to, I can't, I can't really make much of anyone else's horses. Look at Justify. We came in here with Good Magic, and here's this horse Justify that's very lightly raced over there, coming in and jumping up to 1.25 miles quickly, thinking, that's a lot for him to do. And sure enough, we ran second to him. So, this race, you really can't count anybody out, particularly a horse that's undefeated. No matter, how little experience he has, you got to respect them.
You've had horses run well in this race. Obviously, he's the best chance you've had because you haven't won the race yet, and he's the one you have here. But what are some of the attributes that he brings that you think could make the difference to get you into the winner's circle for the Kentucky Derby?
Well, we touched on, this horse has, he's got those 3 mile and eighth races, like you said. He's got plenty of experience. He's had some challenging trips. He clearly looks like he wants the 1.25 miles. Like with Good Magic, we have a champion 2-year-old horse, and came into the race training great, coming off a brilliant work, just like this horse worked. But there was always a little bit of question mark if that horse was going to get 1.25 miles. I don't think anybody is questioning if this horse get 1.25 miles. He might not win, but it's not going to be because he can't run 1.25 miles. So that gives me a little extra confidence.
You're watching the pace scenario with this race because you haven't completely discounted bringing early voting in if there were certain scratches.
Yeah.
What is the pace scenario at this point, you think? You haven't even entered that.
It looks fair. I mean, you're going to have a lot of horses, I think, going, to get early positions. So that in itself causes at least the first quarter of the race, people are going to be, I think, sending out there to try to get their spot. Right now, it looks like there's a fair amount of speed in there. So, right now we're just planning on training them to the Preakness. So I'm going to make a final decision by Sunday because that's when you have to ship here. Right now, it looks, almost certain the horse is going to train and just go to the Preakness. But I'm going to leave the door open just in case, this race starts to have some defections, especially on the front end of the pace scenario, and then I'll change my mind and get them over here.
So on the one hand, you really don't want any pace defections because of Zandon. On the other hand, it might set it up for an opportunity for early voting.
And I'm not even saying early voting needs to be on the lead. In fact, I want to see him in a race where he has a target. He's finding himself a little lost in his races, I believe, late in the race. However, he's still a forwardly placed horse, even if there's some speed in front of him, which I actually would like to tuck in or to have someone to follow. I just not sure going 1.25 miles and only his 3rd career start. If I want him to be around 3-speed horses or 4-speed horses, then I don't know if that's the right 3rd career start for that horse. So that's really my issue with the horse. So that's sort of the way I'm thinking. 4th career start, excuse me. So he's only had 3. So, that horse, I have to manage his future too. It's easy to say, well, we have the points and he's got a good shot and his last number was good, and I get all that. And these Derby horses are hard to come by, and for some people it might be the only chance they're going to have. I'd like to have the horse for the rest of his career, and I think throwing him in a 1.25 mile race where he hasn't had the challenging trips that Zandon's had. This horse has been out on the lead and sort of clean when he comes home, not a bunch of mud on him. And when you swing hard at the Derby and you miss, you have to deal with the aftermath when you're the trainer. And sometimes it's not pretty. These horses need a lot of time, and they set them back mentally or physically, and that's just not what we do over here. I can tell you that. Me or the owner of that horse, Seth Klarman, we try to manage it where we have a good shot to win the race, and also there's not a ton of downside if it doesn't work out. And with this horse right now, I think that it'd be a big risk to bring him over here and throw him in the deep water here.
His wood, it was a tough race. Were you impressed by it?
I was. No, the horse has done everything right his first 3 career starts for me. He showed up, he's run well. He got beat fair and square right by a good horse. I would like to see him with a target at some point too, to see. I think that horse wanted to go on a little bit after that. So hopefully he gets in a situation where there's someone to follow, even in the Preakness would be great. Of course, he's got enough speed where if he gets loose in a race and there's no speed, it's great too. So he's a nice horse to have in the barn, and he's done nothing wrong, and I look forward to him having a great career.
Chad, you said about swinging hard and missing at the Derby. There's a lot of people that still want to swing hard at it.
Yeah.
How do you kind of manage that with owners and stuff?
Yeah, you just, I guess it depends on the situation, it depends on the situation. I can totally sympathize with, people who think it's their only shot. And look, we've had some huge upsets in the Derby, so I'm not gonna, who am I to say, or anyone to say you shouldn't run. It just depends on the horse, the owner, the whole situation for me about managing the long run of the horse. And it might be easier for me to say because I'll probably have, many more Derby entries in the future. Maybe the owner won't, though. Mm-hmm. So you have to manage those situations. I'm always thinking down the road with my horses. I don't want to deal with, I've had horses come out of the Derby and some of them haven't really been the same. And I'm not criticizing the race. It's a tough race. You're talking about 20 horses go to 1.25 mile very early in their life. So, I'm learning about the race, and I think you have to have a certain type of horse to not only go in with a chance, but exit with a future, right? So, those kind of things I have to keep in mind, and it's part of my job is not only just training racehorses, but managing them and managing risk for owners.
Chad, what would the Derby mean for you? You're one of the most successful Breeders' Cup trainers of all time. You've got a Preakness. Where does the Derby rank for you and your?
It'd rank right at the top. Yeah, for me and my team. They've worked so hard. We've been doing this for about 15 years now, and it would mean a lot because it's it's the ultimate achievement for a barn, for a team. It'd mean a lot to me. Obviously I learned from Bobby Frankel. It's the one race that eluded him, and I can tell you firsthand that very late in his career when I worked for him, it was on his mind. He was here with really live horses. He had some bad luck in this race. Yeah. He really did. He had a couple horses I thought could win when I worked for him, and he really, really wanted to win the race. I can tell you that. So, to win that race for him too would be an honor, and I think a fitting tribute to him because he really taught me everything.
Chad, when you were talking about past derbies, and horses that maybe weren't the same. A horse like Normandy Invasion, I remember you were really high on him.
Yeah.
The pace got hot. He took the lead at the top of the stretch.
Yeah, had some bad luck there myself. So, that horse, I thought was our first try at it, and I thought that we had a really good shot, and really he just moved too soon. Palace Mouse was running off with blinkers on the front end, and I remember Verrazano being outside of him, and then Verrazano beat us in the wood, and I think Javier just had on his mind that was the horse to beat because he beat us in the wood. So he's just following him naturally, which, hey, those are hard decisions to make in the middle of a race. So I'm not criticizing him, but evaluating the race rather than criticizing it. I think the whole flow of the race sort of got screwed up and set it up for the horse that won ultimately. down in the first turn of that race, we were about splitting the field between 8th and 10th, perfect on the fence. In hindsight, I wish we had just stayed there and been able to run with the eventual winner to see if we could have got there. But that's the Derby. I mean, everyone has a story like that. If they've run enough horses in here, they didn't get a good trip. So that one sticks out to me as one that maybe, just maybe, with a different trip we could have won. Of course, with Good Magic to run into Justify. I think with Good Magic, he just was in the wrong year. Yeah, he got a beautiful ride. He squared up on that horse turning for home. And in fairness to Justify, I mean, that horse was flying down the backside. You have to think he wasn't going to get 1.25 miles. And he rebroke again, and he did. So second best, just in the wrong year, I'd say, for that one. So those were two horses that were probably good enough to win some derbies.